Sasquatch is a common but forbidden topic on 4chan. The cryptid phenomenon, or mostly common talked about Sasquatch, is a heavily censored and monitored topic. The government is so involved in this because it is a common occurrence that happens to people within the woods worldwide. Canada and America being the highest encounter rate. Numerous amounts of different beings are encountered, Sasquatch being the most commonly reported. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the capabilities of Sasquatch, I recommend you listen to channels that go over people's encounters. They are spread out throughout the earth in remote or forested locations. Their capabilities are out of the ordinary. Invisibility, super speed, super strength, and other reality-breaking things that all cryptids have. Some cryptids are not as capable as others. If you think Sasquatch is a stupid ape being, then you will find all of the stories on it fake. Bruh, why didn't you just take a picture of it? You can't, unless they let you. High levels of government look out for Sasquatch or paranormal activity when it is taking place. It seems when a legit citizen call is placed, they are somehow able to recognize that through technology or some unknown way to the public. Not always, but high chance, if you called the police for a real encounter, you will get an unidentified military unit with helicopters come your way instead of your local police. There is special units to deal with this type of problem. The government, which is evil, doesn't when you interacting with these things, because I guess if you get into communication with a good one and it decides to part with you powerful information through telepathic communications once established, they could cause the government some serious issues, and I'm sure happen. They are not all good though, and some cryptids can fuck you up, so don't get all happy about an encounter. This is all from personal research and knowing people who have had some encounters. Would love if anyone could drop some real info on this subject. You are sort of correct. When you dial 911 and you report you found a Sasquatch, there are people listening in on emergency channels who will respond out to these things. They are animals though, and the government's response to them is keeping them quiet due to a lack of confidence in their population numbers, not because they're magical creatures. They are precious North American animals, and the government does not want them to be extirpated because some assholes decided to go out there and poach an animal just trying to do its own thing. They are literally 8 to 10 foot tall bipedal apes that bum around the forest and eat deer, mushrooms, skunk cabbage. They are crepuscular, reclusive, and will most likely notice you far before you notice them. Please be nice to them. They are not animals. They have mind-blowing capabilities. They can transform into other animals. They are also commonly spotted amongst UFOs. They are highly intelligent. I can't say that for all though. The power of Sasquatch seems to differ depending on how successful the tribe is. Someone I know, we will call him Anon. He is an older person. They were doing charity work for an old man who the whole town thought was a little crazy/weird because he was a recluse. When doing housework for the old man would disappear into the woods and only come back when he knew that the work was almost done. While cleaning the house in the second story, sees long dark hair hanging over the window. Keeps turning his head to see what it is, but keeps only seeing it out of the side of his vision. A couple weeks later, back to work at the old man's house, the old man walks off into the woods as usual. From the thicket and through the bushes/trees, a Sasquatch comes jogging up and acting excited like a dog. That is how he described it. It was giant, at least 7 to 8 feet tall, if not taller, and had long black hair. It fucking speaks and says, "Cut my hair." Anon does a nope.jpg and leaves, and never goes back. Anon realizes the reason the old man kept disappearing was because the old man knew the Squatch was going to approach the house while Anon was working, and the old man did not want to be around for it. Anon starts to wonder if the old man had been habituating a Squatch and even talking to it. Why would a Squatch say, "Cut my hair"? Probably the weirdest Bigfoot story I've ever heard. Besides X, now, and maybe a couple of other people, nobody has ever heard it. In my many years of reading encounters and research, I've come to learn that habituation has supposedly happened between Bigfoot and humans in many other instances. and can extend to the Squatches picking up on the English language or leaving and taking gifts, that they supposedly make friends with some people. Do I believe in Bigfoot? I guess not, since I have not seen one yet. Do I believe everyone, including myself, is lying? No. The Diary of Elkanah Walker. If we are to believe the Diary of Elkanah Walker, pioneer American missionary in Washington State, to the Spokane Native Americans, he wrote, "Bear with me if I trouble you with a little of their superstitions. They believe in a race of giants, which inhabit a certain mountain off to the west of us. The mountain is covered with perpetual snow. They, the creatures, inhabit the snow peaks. They hunt and do all of their work at night. They are men stealers. They come to the people's lodges at night when the people are asleep and take them and put them under their skins and to their place of abode without even waking. Their track is 1.5 feet long. They steal salmon from Native American nets and eat them raw as the bears do. If the people are awake, they always know when they are coming very near by their strong smell that is most intolerable. It is not uncommon for them to come in the night and give free whistles, and then the stones will begin to hit their houses. Reverend Walker's established mission was approximately located 25 miles northwest of present-day Spokane, WA. His diary entry of the snow peak to the west could be one of the several peaks in the Cascade Range, such as Mount Baker, Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, or Mount St. Helens, or possibly he could have meant Mount Hood on the Oregon side of the Columbia River. But Sasquatch researchers, myself among them, generally believe the missionary was referring to Mount St. Helens, which has always carried legends of Sasquatches, ape-like men, and of course, the 1924 story of Fred Beck in Ape Canyon. Missionary Walker also penned pre-Civil War references to this beautiful Mount St. Helens as a place where the white man and the Native Americans never frequented, and who asserted is inhabited by a race of beings of a different species, who are cannibals, and whom they hold in great dread. In his private writings, he declared the Native Americans called these different beings Seatkos or Celtics, words which he thought at the time of his writings possibly referred to renegade or outcast Native Americans banished from tribal villages, and not the elusive timber giant. Of this referential point we cannot be sure, but his diaries were the first to make mention of it. Consensus has always been, Bigfoot is a elusive monkey beast. The only people who think that are people who have never actually encountered one. Be me, be around 7 years old, walking back late with parents from a relative's place, walking near a gigantic open playing field with a small forest. Mother freaks the fuck out and says that she saw something. Said it looked like a huge man covered in hair. Said it was practically snarling at me, but I did not notice it. She is hyperventilating. Never seen her like this, so I'm kinda freaked out. She is begging my dad to call the cops. Father calms her down eventually. We start walking again. As we are right next to the playing field, I feel something weird in my mind. Kinda felt like someone suddenly dropped something onto me or something. Don't actually feel it in my body. It was more like I felt their intention to stop me on that spot. It's hard to describe. My shoes are stuck to the ground. I mean, literally stuck. Dad, who is strong as fuck, could not lift my feet off of the ground. He looks over into the field, and I see it in his face when he realizes that something is really wrong here. I start to freak out. Mother suddenly starts acting really strange. Does not sound like herself. She fucking tells my dad to leave me there and come back for me tomorrow. What the fuck? Dad unties my shoes, picks me up out of my shoes. He kicks something and I look down. He tried to kick over my shoes and they still would not budge. He says we have to get the fuck out of here and carries me the rest of the way back. We are back and Mother has a fucking seizure and passes out. This has never happened before. Dad checks on her and then sits staring into space with a weird look on his face. Asked me if when I was stuck if I could feel something out there in the darkness. Says he has never felt anything like that before. Goes to bed. Next morning, neither of them could remember getting back that night. It's not really my favorite, but I like it because it's local to me. Can't remember all of the details, word for word neither. Sometime in the 1940s, young boys hanging out with some friends. They, and others, see objects flying around the sky. This is during World War II, so they are used to seeing things flying in the sky, but they have not seen ones like this before. They are kids, so they don't really pay much attention and just do their own thing. A few days later, they are playing in a lane and one of the crafts either lands or just appears. A's get out, but they are not all one species. Describes one as a grey, one as like a Bigfoot, and then other assorted ones. There is around 5 of them in total. Friends shit their britches and run off. One of them grabs him, and I am pretty sure sticks a needle in the back of his neck. Not sure what happens after that, but later that night, / a couple of days later, he is looking out of his bedroom window and sees a little A, maybe a grey, I am not sure, loitering around the back gate that leads to the lane. His uncle hits it over the head with a shovel and kills it. The uncle and a cop put it inside of a coal sack and bury it at the stairs of the church. Week or so later, men in black turn up at his house and give vague threats to him and his family. Doesn't tell the story until the 50s or the 60s, which, as far as I know, predates the multi-species A's sharing aircraft meme. Actually have a green text related to the church that I'm going to post after this because I'm mental and no one can stop me. I didn't find out about the A thing until later though, which is when I put 2 and 2 together to make what I like the sound of. Go into town with friend one day. Road is always busy, but this is fucking gridlocked. Look further ahead and can see police activity near the junction we turn off at. Right at the junction is the church. Can see a lot of activity at the church too. Have one of those forensic tents set up at the entrance and forensic white paper suit types coming and going. Church is long closed down by this time and is actually in the process of being renovated into a cafe or some shit. By the time we get to the junction, we get stopped again. Talk to one of the cops there and ask what is going on. They said there is a gas leak and everyone is being evacuated from nearby with a sort of exclusion zone set up. Found this interesting because there had been a gas leak on the same road only a few months before, but the evacuation and exclusion zone was massive compared to this one. Interestingly, there was not a single fire truck or gas worker there, only cops and forensics. We come back a few hours later and everyone is gone like they had never been there. A few weeks later, I am walking past and looking at the renovations. Typically, I hate that shit on old Soviet buildings, but this one is okay because everything outside has been left as is, with the renovations taking place more on the inside. The only thing that has changed outside are the main steps leading into the church. They have been replaced with newer ones, which is exactly where the little forensic tent was, and where the man in the A encounter claims the body was buried. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. Haven't told this story on here in a good few years, and even prior to that, have told it to very few people I know personally. It is one of the only truly strange encounters I have ever had, and I still get majorly creeped out thinking about it. Around 2014, myself and 2 buddies went camping in Scrubland in rural Victoria, Australia. The particular area we were camping on was owned by family of one of my mates, and a few of his family came with us as well. His family stayed in small, unpowered cabin in the dead center of this property, while we roughed it in a medium-sized tent about 300 meters from the cabin in the scrub, in a small clearing. We wanted to keep our distance from the others for our trip, hence why we decided to pitch our tent that far away. We set up our tent not long after we arrived, and decided to explore a bit before dark. For context, the property sits against state-owned bushland and blue gum plantations, with many creeks and washes snaking through the area. We walked for a little while to a dirt road that leads up past the property to a creek with a small cement bridge crossing it. We decided to clamber down the side of the creek bed to the water, which was only just flowing, and follow it upstream. We follow it for a while, trying to avoid accidentally stepping on a tiger snake or getting covered in leeches. In the mud, not far from the water of the creek, we find the partially buried remains of an animal. Looking back, likely a kangaroo based on the size of the bones. Creepy, but the three of us think nothing of it in that moment. Why it was up the creek this far and partially buried, I have no idea. The area is not subject to flooding, and I doubt a local will go to the effort of moving roadkill this far. Anyway, we continue up the creek and find another pile of bones and rotting meat sticking out the side of the creek bed, covered in branches. This time, we all find it odd. The stench was strong and foul, so we decided to turn back. The creek was getting a little hard to follow now, with the brush getting thicker. We walked back the way we came, passing the first lot of bones we saw earlier, and then clambered back up the creek bed to the small bridge. We did not notice it before, but the stench from the rotting animal upstream seemed to follow us all the way back to the bridge. It was so foul, it almost made our eyes water, a very sharp, sickly smell. We decided to head back and meet up with my mate's family before we head to our tent for the night. A few hours passed by, and now it's about 8 p.m, still just light out, and we have set up a small fire by the tent. We cook up some bacon and eggs, typical Aussie camping food. By the time we were done eating, it is pitch dark outside, and we decide to try and catch some sleep as we plan to do a big kayaking trip in a river nearby. We all get in our own sleeping bags, but the tent is not all that large, so we are pretty much shoulder to shoulder, but none of us really minded at the time. It was a little uncomfortable on foam sleeping mats though, and none of us got very restful sleep. I don't remember falling asleep, but in the middle of the night, I was awoken by footsteps. Odd, I thought, as the family who was staying in the cabin some 300 meters away were elderly, or very young. Why would they walk all the way out here to our tent in the dead of the night, and I didn't see any torchlight? I checked my watch, around midnight. The footsteps were faint, but the night was rather still, and I could hear them crunching around in the dark, slowly moving past our tent. I had trouble sleeping, and so laid there, awake, listening. As I am drifting back to sleep, I am jolted awake by a deep, guttural growling. It absolutely scared the shit out of me. I felt completely paralyzed in fear. The growling got louder, then turned to more like a series of deep, low barks, almost like deep laughter. I jostle my friends next to me awake, but say nothing. The two of them bolt upright in their sleeping bags, only barely visible by the moonlight coming through the tent walls. The sounds stop. Footsteps start again, coming closer to our tent. They were heavy and had some delay between each step, as though whoever or whatever it was moving slowly, carefully choosing each step. For added context, the only animals that I know that are found in the area are possums, koalas, and kangaroos, probably foxes and rabbits too. For those unfamiliar with kangaroos, when they hop at a full sprint pace, it can sound like human running. This sound was not like that. It was heavy and almost methodical. The steps stopped. I'm not sure how far from the tent, and whatever it was started growling again. It was deep, guttural, and raspy, and slowly began changing pitch before it finished with a loud, echoing hoot or holler. We were all silent, sitting up in our sleeping bags, facing the way the sound came from. We did not hear any more footsteps, but the brush was rustling softly where the call came from. The forest was silent for a while, and we started to whisper to each other. Lots of cussing and "what the fuck was that" was said, as quietly as we could. One of my friends, bless his heart, was so taken by the sound, he just had this wide-eyed, pale look on his face, and he never said a word. Out of nowhere, while we whispered quietly, we heard another deep sound that ended with another loud and echoing hoot or bark in the distance, far out into the scrub, as if in answer back to whatever was sitting near our tent. We fell silent. The footsteps near us started again, and they began to pace around our tent. Slowly, whatever it was made a full circle around us, deeply growling and gurgling to itself. It's hard to explain these sounds in words, but it was unlike anything I've ever heard before or since. Nothing like the usual koalas or possum chatter. The footsteps would continue, then stop, before it called out again, only for a response to call back from what we assumed to be a few hundred meters deeper into the forest. Occasionally, in the distance, where the other thing was calling from, we would hear a large crash or bang, like a rock or branch being hurled against the foot of the tree or the ground. It would echo and fade, like the hooting and barking. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, the footsteps grew further and further away, until we could not hear them anymore. I checked my watch, and it's only just past 1 a.m. It felt like we were sitting, listening to us be surrounded for hours and hours. We still heard a call or two in the distance, but it eventually faded away, and the forest was silent again. All three of us were obviously pretty shaken, and we slept very little, if at all, for the rest of the morning. Eventually, nighttime came, and we got out of the tent tentatively, had our morning piss, and packed the tent down as quickly as we could. We were mostly silent, not really in the mood yet to discuss it. We had a quick look around the area where we heard the footsteps and strange sounds, but found no evidence or tracks, to our knowledge at least, as the ground was well covered in fallen leaves and bark. We walked our stuff back to the cabin and hung around for a while until my mate's family got up. We made coffee, not that we really needed it. We were still wide awake from the events earlier in the night, and spoke quietly about what happened. We were sure it was not a kangaroo or a koala, as we had all heard the sounds they make on other trips outdoors. It was like nothing any of us had ever heard before. I even struggle to this day to find like recordings online, even when searching for more paranormal answers. When the other woke up and came out of the cabin, we coyly asked if they had heard any noises during the night. They didn't, of course. Not much happened after this. We got packed and headed out, did our kayaking trip, on very little sleep I might add. I will admit, the three of us did keep looking over our shoulders into the bush aside the river as we went upriver, pretty paranoid from the night before. My two friends have since showed little interest in discussing the events of that night since then, and often shut down the conversation about what may have made the sounds. To this day, I still do not have an answer. I don't like to jump to the cryptid answer, but I will admit, it has crossed my mind many times. Bigfoot, Yahweh, whatever, I'm not sure. It is a big jump to put a name to something we never saw. Has anyone else had a similar experience in Australia? Figured I would share some of my own experiences and one spooky Area 51 story that my dad and grandpa experienced. Be me, around 16 years old, living in rural Colorado, essentially in the Rocky Mountains. Dad loves to backpack and hike, and I have been hiking since I was 1 year old. We are both into paranormal stuff. He says he has seen ghosts several times, and potentially even Bigfoot. I, more skeptical, fascinated by Bigfoot stuff, but mostly from a thought experiment sort of standpoint. We decided to go backpacking during fall break at this trail pretty far from where we live. The place is beautiful, lots of ponderosa and aspen. One landmark of the trail we're about to do is a section that covers 1,000 plus feet of elevation, like a super short area, using a fuck ton of switchbacks. Luckily, we were going to be going down the trail rather than the other direction. We see a small party of hikers when we first start the trail, but for the next 3 days, we see absolutely no one. We barely saw any wildlife or anything, only a deer, a bat, and the occasional squirrel. Our second night, we decide to camp by this river. The area we set up in is this relatively narrow slot canyon, but not straight up or vertical. On one side, there is this pile of rocks and gravel covering a part of the mountainside. There were some massive boulders around that indicated that huge chunks of the cliff face had broken off before. It was a little sketch, but overall seemed safe. Still confused how we had not seen a single person since that first part of the trail. At around 2 to 4 in the morning, still dark out, we hear an extremely loud crashing noise from roughly 50 meters back up the trail, the direction we came from. It sounded something like several cymbals being clanged together, the sprinkling sound of a firework, and the pure thump of an extremely heavy object hitting dirt. We both wake up after hearing it, and we get out for a bit to make sure nothing fucked up is happening. Nothing happens, so we head back to sleep. The next morning, we walk a good 500 meters in both directions, following the trail, to see if a boulder had fallen into the water or something. We find nothing new. There is no broken branches, torn up dirt, nothing. I'm not saying this was Bigfoot or anything. All I'm saying is, I have no clue what it could have been. We are both a little creeped out due to how bizarre it was, but overall, we were not scared for our lives or anything crazy like that. We decide to haul ass on the third day and walk an extra mile or two to the end of the trail. Still have no idea what it could have been. I suppose it could have been a boulder, but we probably would have heard it coming down the mountain or found the new Boulder. While I was in the Marine Corps, we would be stalked by these Bigfoot creatures at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. It did not matter how many of us were out there. We were armed with rifles and no ammo and or blanks during field ops. They would pick up whatever trash or snacks we would drop. We sometimes could see their eyes in the tree line and see random glimmers of shadows through our night optics. But you can see outlines and or someone's figure. I mean like stuff that was used probably during the early 2000s, and they were monocular. We would hear knocks or rustling throughout our nights around Verona Loop training grounds or on Camp Lejeune. Many of us who spent time in the infantry spend about 45 to 60% of the year in the woods. You could hear them at night. One night I was doing patrol ops in the woods/hills, and we decided to take a pause. It was around 3 a.m., and we were taking a nap break. It was during a war game, and I was on watch with one of my buddies. Holding security, we saw an outline in the woods, and meanwhile, we were sleep deprived, not thinking we were seeing real things in the tree line, till we talked to each other to confirm what we were seeing through our nods. Pebbles were being thrown at us, and we were confused. Thinking we were about to be run up on by Op 4, opposition force, so we wake up our other guys slowly, thinking we're about to be ambushed. Turns out we were being stalked. We decided to get into defensive positions, and rocks kept coming, thinking we were being messed with by the advisors running around overwatching the war game. We checked on the radio if there were any nearby. None at all. So we thought it was Op 4. We opened up with blanks, but as we opened up, we saw a massive creature and another one about 25 to 30 meters away. The creatures knocked over a semi-thin tree and gave a deep growl, something that would shake guys who were desensitized and not really scared by anything. When daylight came, we circled back to look, and we found huge footprints. We were so confused and shaken. After that situation, we did not know how to explain what we saw or experienced. That night I became an actual believer. I was always skeptical about Bigfoot or some creature being in the woods. It was about 5 years ago. To this day, I struggle to go into the woods. Gang stalked by Bigfoot. I live out in the country, deep in the sticks in Georgia. For the past 12 years, every night there was banging on my roof, tapping on my windows, scraping noises on the walls outside. Sometimes huge crashing noises, and bangs that make me just about shit myself. The whole house shakes. Sometimes I stay up all night and see these huge beasts moving toward my house through the windows. I've managed to see their faces a few times, but they run lightning fast when I turn on the porch or yard lights or shine a flashlight, faster than Usain Bolt. I tried leaving the lights on at night to keep them away, but they throw rocks at the lights until they break if I do that. It's horrible, because I can barely sleep, and I am too poor to move. Sex with my wife gets interrupted by all the noise. Sometimes she gets startled by the banging, and farts while we're doing it, which kills the mood. I'm worried, because it's gotten worse. I think they want to kill me. They seem like they've started following me to work. If I work late, I'll go out to my truck in the parking lot and sometimes see one messing around with my car. The muffler was torn off once. One broke a window, and I briefly saw it with its arm reaching into the car through the broken window as I left work. The fuckers distract me at work by throwing pebbles at the windows if it's dark enough outside. They also started sending me telepathic messages about how they want me to leave, how I look tasty to them, and how they eat humans they hate. Think this explains missing 411. I've tried taking pictures, but they always come out fucked up in some way because the hairy bastards avoid light and are so quick. Pic related looks like the one I saw staring through my window when I went to get a midnight snack and flipped the lights on briefly.